When you think of the timber industry, you probably picture roaring chainsaws and towering trees crashing to the forest floor. But behind every felled log is a machine, and for nearly a century, some of the most important of those machines wore Caterpillar yellow. Now, here's the thing. Caterpillar is famous, wildly famous, but it's famous for the wrong machines, at least if you're a logger. Everyone knows the giant mining trucks and the construction dozers. Almost nobody talks about the forestry equipment that quietly carried the logging industry on its back for generations. So today, we're fixing that. These are 10 Caterpillar logging machines that should have been famous, the pioneers, the workhorses, and the giants that moved more timber than history ever gave them credit for. Stick around to number 1, because it's a machine so dominant that loggers in the western woods still talk about it today. Let's get into it. Number 10, the Caterpillar 60. We have to start at the very beginning, because this is where the whole story takes root. The Caterpillar 60 wasn't even born a caterpillar. It started life as the CL Best 60 track layer, first sold in 1919 by the CL Best Tractor Company. When Best merged with the Holt Manufacturing Company in 1925 to form the Caterpillar Tractor Company, the Best 60 was renamed the Caterpillar 60. Here's what makes this machine remarkable. It was powered by a 4-cylinder gasoline engine that produced 60 horsepower at the belt and 35 at the drawbar. It weighed around 20,500 pounds, rode on a 72-inch gauge, and between 1919 and 1931, nearly 19,000 of them were built. That's an enormous run for the era. But why does it matter for logging? Because the 60 was actually sold as a logging cruiser. In the dense forests of California and the Pacific Northwest, this crawler dragged massive old-growth logs out of terrain that horses and oxen simply couldn't handle. The Holt tractors that preceded it had already proven themselves in West Coast logging, and the 60 took that legacy and ran with it. And here's a detail almost nobody knows. This same machine helped build the Hoover Dam and the original Hollywood sign. It worked on every continent except Antarctica. The 60's basic design is still considered a core element of Caterpillar's dozers today. A logging tractor that helped build modern America, and most people have never heard its name. Number 9. The Caterpillar D. If the 60 was the foundation, the D2 was the machine that brought diesel power to the everyday logger. First produced in 1938, the Caterpillar D2 was the smallest diesel track-type tractor in Caterpillar's lineup, and that was exactly the point. While the big diesel crawlers were conquering old-growth giants, plenty of logging operations were smaller outfits working tighter budgets and smaller timber. The D2 was built for them, powered by a 4-cylinder Caterpillar diesel engine producing around 31 to 38 horsepower, depending on the configuration and year. The D2 was compact, fuel-efficient, and tough as nails. It weighed roughly 7,000 to 8,000 pounds, light enough to maneuver through dense stands and onto ground that would bog down a heavier machine, yet strong enough to drag a respectable load of logs. For loggers, this was the machine that made mechanized logging accessible. You didn't need to be a massive timber company with deep pockets to put a diesel crawler to work. A small family operation could buy a D2, fit it with a winch, and suddenly do the work that used to take a whole team of horses at a fraction of the ongoing cost. Diesel fuel economy meant the machine paid for itself in the woods, season after season. The D2 also became a favorite for skidding on smaller jobs, building logging roads and clearing brush. It was the kind of dependable, do-everything machine that earned fierce loyalty from the people who ran it. Many D2s are still running today, lovingly restored by collectors and small acreage woodlot owners who swear there's nothing better for light logging work. A little diesel crawler that democratized logging, and almost nobody outside the old-timers remembers its name. Number 8. The Caterpillar RD8. By 1935, Caterpillar had renamed its diesel line the RD series, and there's a fun bit of debate here. Many believe the RD stood for Rudolf Diesel, the inventor of the diesel engine himself, though it's never been officially confirmed. The RD8 arrived in 1935, powered by a new 6-cylinder D13000 diesel engine rated at over 110 horsepower. And in the logging world, this is where things get serious. Out in British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest, the RD8 became a logging legend. Companies like the Bendixson Logging Company on Vancouver Island, which had started with nothing but teams of horses and skilled loggers, put these machines to work hauling enormous old-growth timber. There's a famous 1939 photograph of Harold Bendixson operating an RD-8, wrestling logs that dwarfed the machine itself. What made the RD-8 a true logging machine wasn't just the engine, it was the equipment bolted to it. These crawlers were fitted with Hister towing winches and Hister crawler-mounted logging arches. The Hister Company, based in Portland, Oregon, had been building winches for Caterpillar machines since 1929, starting with the Model 60. The RD-8 designation eventually evolved into the Cat D81H series, and over 10,000 of those machines were produced. That D13000 engine, eventually upgraded to 130 horsepower, powered the D8 line for 2 solid decades. The RD-8 didn't just log trees, it defined what tractor logging looked like for a generation. Number 7. The Caterpillar D7. The D7 doesn't get enough respect, and that's a shame, because it's one of the most versatile machines Caterpillar ever built for the woods. First manufactured in 1938, the D7 was a medium track-type tractor that became a staple in forests around the world, and it just kept evolving. There was the D7C in 1955, the D7D in 1959, the 160 horsepower D7E in 1961, the 180 horsepower D7F in 1969, and the 200 horsepower D7G in 1974. In 1986, the D7H became the first D7 with Caterpillar's elevated drive sprocket undercarriage. So why was it perfect for logging? It comes down to a sweet spot in size and weight. The D7 is powerful yet relatively small and light, somewhere between 16 and 20 short tons depending on configuration. That combination makes it ideal for working on very steep slopes and in dense forests, exactly the kind of brutal terrain where logging happens. A heavier dozer would get stuck or tear up the ground. A lighter machine wouldn't have the muscle to drag the timber. The D7 threaded that needle perfectly. Fitted with a winch and an arch, it could selectively log slopes that bigger machines couldn't even reach. It's the quiet professional of the Caterpillar logging family. Never flashy, always working. Number 6. The Caterpillar D8 with logging arc. We touched on the D8 lineage with the RD8, but the post-war D8 deserves its own spot, because in the 1940s and 1950s, this machine combined with a logging arch became the backbone of West Coast tractor logging. Here's the concept. A logging arch is a towed frame, essentially a set of huge wheels or tracks with a tall arch that lifts the front end of the logs off the ground while the dozer drags them. By lifting one end, you dramatically reduce friction and ground damage, letting a single machine haul enormous loads. In the 1940s and 1950s, tractor logging with an arch was actually less expensive than cable logging on favorable ground, meaning terrain level enough for a dozer to operate. There are photographs from 1951 of pairs of D8s recovering old-growth logs during salvage operations in Oregon's Tillamook Burn, the site of a series of catastrophic forest fires. And here's a detail that shows just how dangerous this work was. The Oregon D8s had 3 special modifications tied to the state's early adoption of a logging safety code. There was a canopy over the operator to protect against falling objects. There were sweeps, deflectors running from the radiator to the canopy to push brush over the top of the machine. And there was wire mesh on the back, specifically to stop flying rigging if the winch line snapped. That tells you everything. These weren't gentle machines in gentle places. They were tools of survival in some of the most hazardous workplaces on Earth. Number 5. The Caterpillar 518 Skidder. Now we move into the era of purpose-built forestry machines, and the 518 is where Caterpillar got serious about the modern logging market. A skidder is a machine designed for one job, dragging cut logs from the stump out to the landing, where they get loaded onto trucks. And the Caterpillar 518 became one of the most recognizable rubber-tired skidders in the woods, with units dating back to the 1970s and running strong through the 1990s with the 518C. What made the 518 special was its versatility and toughness. It came in cable versions with a winch, letting the operator pull logs from spots the machine couldn't physically reach, and grapple versions, where a hydraulic claw simply grabbed and dragged. Powered by a Caterpillar engine, it offered the kind of reliability that loggers depend on when they're miles from the nearest repair shop. And here's the proof of how good it was. Today, decades after they rolled off the line, used 518 skidders are still being bought, sold, and worked hard. You'll find 1978 models with new tires and chains, two-owner machines with engines that, in the words of sellers, still run strong with no blow-by. When a machine is still earning its keep 45 years later, that's not just durability, that's a legend hiding in plain sight. Number 4. The Caterpillar 227 Fellabuncher. Let's talk about one of the most dramatic machines in all of logging, the Fellabuncher, and Caterpillar's entry into that world. A Fellabuncher does something that looks almost like science fiction. It drives up to a standing tree, grabs it with a clamping head, cuts through the trunk in seconds with a saw or shear, and then, while still holding the tree upright, carries it over and stacks it in a neat bunch for the skidder. Cut, grab, stack. One machine, one operator, thousands of trees. The first Fellabunchers were developed in the 1960s, and they revolutionized how forests were harvested. The Caterpillar 227 was part of this transformation, a tracked Fellabuncher with a standard operating length of around 36 feet and a width of over 11 feet. Its tracks let it work across soft ground and uneven terrain, where wheeled machines would struggle. Why should this be famous? Because the Fellabuncher fundamentally changed the economics and safety of logging. Instead of a human standing next to a falling tree with a chainsaw, one of the most dangerous jobs that has ever existed, the operator sits safely inside a steel cab. The 227 represented Caterpillar putting its engineering muscle behind that safety revolution. Machines like this saved an untold number of lives, and they almost never get credit for it. Number 3. The Caterpillar 573 Wheel Fellabuncher. If the 227 was Caterpillar's early step into felling, the 573 represents how far the company pushed the concept. In the modern era, Caterpillar introduced a completely redesigned family of wheel feller bunches, including the 563C and the 573C. These weren't minor updates. The company started by talking to both Caterpillar customers and non-customers to learn what they actually needed in the next generation of these machines, then drove every design decision from that feedback. The result was impressive. The 573C was powered by the Cat C 7.1 ACERT engine, which delivered more power while burning less fuel than previous models. It featured a technology called Power Direct Plus that optimized machine efficiency, delivering power exactly where and when it was needed. But the real star was the cutting attachment. Caterpillar introduced the SH56B high-capacity bunching saw, featuring a patented straight-grip bunching finger and a no-pinch point design. According to Caterpillar's own forest products engineers, it was the most versatile and balanced high-capacity bunching saw on the market, keeping bunches tightly compressed and straight, which made the entire downstream operation more efficient. Better organized stems meant the skidders and loaders downstream worked faster too. The 573 is a perfect example of an unsung hero. It's not a single famous machine. It's a thoughtfully engineered tool that quietly made entire logging operations more productive. And that kind of behind-the-scenes excellence rarely makes headlines. Number 2. The Caterpillar 555D Skidder. For a moment in time, this was the biggest skidder Caterpillar had ever built. In 2014, Caterpillar introduced its largest skidder ever, the 555D. To understand why this matters, you have to understand the trend in the logging industry. Trees aren't getting smaller, demand isn't getting lighter, and operators are constantly pushed to move more timber per trip to stay profitable. The answer the entire industry reached for was simple: go bigger. The 555D was Caterpillar's response, a heavy-duty grapple skidder built to drag enormous loads across the kind of terrain that destroys lesser machines. This was the era when manufacturers across the board were chasing size. Competitors like John Deere introduced their massive 948L skidder, weighing 25 tons with a huge grapple. Caterpillar's 555D was right there in that heavyweight class. Why should it be famous? Because it represents the peak of a particular philosophy in mechanized logging. maximum power, maximum capacity, maximum productivity in a single pass. For the loggers who ran them, a machine like the 555D meant fewer trips, more timber, and a healthier bottom line. It was the muscle car of the skidder world, and outside of logging circles, almost nobody knows it ever existed. Number 1. The Caterpillar 568 Forest Machine. And here we are at number 1, a machine that didn't just join the logging industry, it took it over. The Caterpillar 568 was introduced back in 2011, and the industry took notice immediately. This is a tracked forestry excavator, what loggers call a forest machine, and it quickly proved itself as a reliable asset in the demanding western woods, moving logs in tough ground like no other machine could. Let's talk about the scale of this thing. Caterpillar's largest tracked log loader, the 568 Forest Machine, comes in at over 106,000 pounds in one configuration. That's 53 tons of purpose-built logging power. And it's not a one-trick machine. The 568 and the broader 500 series excel across a huge range of logging applications: road building, processing, shovel logging, the Yoda technique, and log loading. The 568 became known as the industry standard machine in its class. The 568 FM leading Caterpillar's expanded 500 series lineup. When a fifth-generation Oregon logger described the next-generation version, he praised the enormous cab and what he called the phenomenal swing power, noting it was more productive than the old model while using 20% less fuel. In his words, in logging, you only make money if you produce lots of logs, and this machine produced. Here's the twist that makes the 568 story even more interesting. In 2019, Weiler Inc. entered an agreement to purchase Caterpillar Inc.'s purpose-built forestry business, including the wheel skidders, the track and wheel feller bunchers, and the knuckle boom loaders. So the machine that should be most famous is also the centerpiece of a major changing of the guard in the forestry equipment world. The 568 represents the absolute pinnacle of nearly a century of Caterpillar logging evolution. From a gasoline crawler dragging logs in 1919 to a 53-ton precision forestry machine, and most people outside the industry have never heard of it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into forgotten iron, hit that like button, subscribe for more heavy equipment history, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.